Heyo, Omnidogs and Omnikittens. Omnidog here with an overview and review of Marc Spector Moon Knight. And this is an omnibus. We can take a look at the spine there. Whoop. Back cover. And let's take a look at the binding real quick before we get started. As you can see, binding very nice. I relaxed the spine, of course, ahead of time. So that is solid binding right there. And no, I don't actually care that there's some kind of ink mark there. It doesn't bother me a bit. Before we open it up, let me remind you that you can find this book at organicpricedbooks.com, where if you use the code Omnidog, $2 off. Big savings, 5% off, shipping 3 or more books together with code Omnidog. Ship it together. So let's take the DJ off, the dust jacket, and see what it looks like inside. Now, this run was 89 through 90, 1989 through 1990. We can get a look at this. And this is what it looks like. Let's see what the spine looks like under the cover. Very nice, very nice. This is a different Moon Knight than the first 2 books and that you're probably used to now. Because, okay, here's the list of the table of contents. Very nice. The creators here, Chuck Dixon did a majority of the volume. They decided to make Moon Knight a street crime fighter, bring him down to the streets. Not much Khonshu in this issue. It's Marc Spector, Moon Knight, just Marc Spector, no other personalities. They refer to his Jewish heritage in this book. And as you can see from the first issue, he is down on the ground fighting crime, and alongside the likes of guest stars such as Punisher, Ghost Rider, Spider-Man, and a variety of other characters. Here is a look at some of the art. That's Marlene, his on-again, off-again girlfriend. He is joined by Frenchie, his co-pilot, or his pilot rather, that helps him on missions. First, I didn't even know who Charles Dixon was. I was like, who? What? Oh, yeah, Chuck. So this is pretty standard, I would say, for the art at the time. And it's not as wordy as Bronze Age stuff before it. And it doesn't quite get into the 90s sort of madness that we all remember the 90s comics. It's not too complicated. It's very straightforward. Here he has Bushman, who is a dictator in Africa, an African state where I believe it's Africa. Well, let's just call it a generic country where he is the dictator. He was a mercenary along with Marc Spector when Marc Spector found Khonshu. And if I remember right, Bushman may have been the one to try and kill Marc Spector when Spector found Khonshu. Now, there's very little interaction with Khonshu in this. They made a decision to get him more of a street level. His businesses aren't doing well. He's draining the funds to wage his war on crime on the ground. So and here we go with the Punisher. Atlantis Attacks. Oh, that was the annual here. Some of these stories take place during, well, not only Atlantis Attacks, but the Acts of Vengeance event, which I never read and don't have any plans to. And those are actually some of the better stories in the book because there's no other heroes in New York, so it's just these guys. And I found those to be pretty entertaining and interesting stories. Here he is, Brain Trust, Frenchie, Punisher. He's buds with Punisher. Even though he doesn't approve of, Punisher's methods, nobody does, including Spider-Man, who is a constant guest. Here we have Black Cat, who looks 10 feet tall right there. There she is, back to normal. I found this book to be an easy read. It's not complicated. It's very much of the time with street level crime fighters. I think that Moon Knight fans will be happy with this. And this is a book that a newcomer could read too, because it's very simple. There's not a lot of back and forth with Khonshu and his various personalities and stuff. It's very simplified and interesting. Bushman appears throughout the... this is one of the better stories right here. Which one is this? I think Dr. Voodoo gets turned into... Dr. Voodoo gets turned into a zombie. Yeah, what is this? Yeah, Brother Voodoo. I apologize. Brother Voodoo. I get him mixed up with Dr. Fate or somebody, or I just don't know what I'm saying. So, yeah, Brother Voodoo gets turned into a zombie. This is actually a pretty good story. I really enjoyed it, with a bunch of zombies and Brother Voodoo, how Marc Spector helps him. I really enjoyed that storyline. There's a recurring theme with this kid, Midnight, who is... he starts out as Moon Knight's sidekick and then evolves into something completely different by the end of the book. I would say that there's a lot of cult activity in this book, lots of cults that they fight. There's a lot of mercenaries, guns for hire, and a lot of C-level villains that you may have never heard of, and probably for good reason. Killer Shrike, Ringer, and Coach Whip. You don't need to know too much about those guys, other than to know that he kicks their ass regularly. So here's some more artwork. Political Handbook. The Republic of Burundi. Political Handbook for Africa. He tangles with Bushman, dictator Bushman, like a lot. Now, I said that there's not a whole lot of Khonshu in this book. One of the best stories... this is a really good arc. This is when Marc Spector is wanted... internationally for overthrowing, while he was a mercenary, overthrowing a government, and he decides to turn himself in. And it's, of course, more complex than that, and actually pretty good. I really enjoyed that story. And here we have Spider-Man and Punisher. Spider-Man is very well written. He's pretty snappy with his dialogue. Punisher, as I said, bloodthirsty, killing, pretty much Punisher stuff. Punisher shows up a lot. This, I think, is my favorite story arc. Here's Ghost Rider showing up. Scarlet Redemption, J.M. DeMatteis with a Bill Sienkiewicz covers throughout the run. This is probably the most Khonshu... Well, no, probably. This is the most Khonshu in the book. There's a woman named Scarlet that shows back up in Marc Spector's life. You don't need to know anything about Scarlet other than they apparently were better than good friends back in the past. She's come back on a crusade of her own, and Marc gets tangled up with her. And this is where he deals with not only his belief in Khonshu, but also is visited by visions of his rabbi father. I dig this art right here. And I don't want to spoil it too much. He has many visions, and it's a very... Whoops. Yeah, this is a big chunk of the book. Scarlet Redemption epilogue. So it's a solid 6 issues or so, and it's really good. Whoa, what? Is that Hobgoblin? Yeah, he makes an appearance. Spidey in his black suit makes an appearance. Oh, Killer Shrike, what are you still doing here? Hasn't he defeated you for good? These stories are actually, I really enjoyed all these stories. I think that, oh, Darkhawk, my buddy, he makes an appearance too in the Spider-Man issues. Spider-Man, this ties into the Moon Knight book at the time, so they went back and forth, and those issues are included in this. And this is part of Midnight's evolution into what he becomes. Now, I don't want to give... Oh, Mark Bagley, early penciling. See, I don't want to give too much away. There's Spidey still. Night Thrasher and Nova make an appearance for a long arc. That's Al Milgrom doing the writing, and early Mark Bagley stuff. So there you have it. I enjoyed this issue. I enjoyed this omnibus. I think if you're a Moon Knight fan, you also will. Just don't go in with any expectations of any mysticism and stuff with Khonshu. This is down in the dirt, down in the streets, gritty, hand-to-hand fighting with some of his toys. And what I like about it is they do throw in a lot of personal relationship stuff with Marlene and with Frenchie and others in his orbit, so that we get a little bit more of Moon Knight as Marc Spector fleshed out. Marc Spector as Moon Knight, rather. We get his character fleshed out a little bit more, and we learn more about him. So I think this book is worth you guys checking out. I found it to be worthy of staying in my collection. I'm happy to stick it in the Marvel shelf. This is about a solid 1989 to 1990 writing and art as you're going to get. So there it is. Marc Spector, Moon Knight, Omnibus Review from Omnidog. Peace and love, peace and love. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment if you like, and go to organicpricebooks.com and use my codes. You know what they are. Thank you for tuning in. Peace and love. Peace and love.